Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. If you follow the tech space even a little bit, you absolutely felt the aftershocks of June 10, 2026. In just 24 hours, the worlds of AI, crypto, and gaming completely collided. We witnessed the massive deployment of frontier AI models, a fierce philosophical war breaking out among tech giants, mind-bending consumer tech announcements, a billion-dollar financial offensive, and the return of an absolute gaming legend. It was quite literally the night the future arrived. Okay, let's dive straight into this. We've got a massive roadmap today covering 5 industry-altering stories. The AI safety experiment, the tool versus conscious entity debate, huge leaps in consumer AI, the wrapped Bitcoin war, and finally, Nintendo's dual switch strategy.
Starting off with Section 1, the AI safety experiment, and Anthropic's high-stakes public release.
So on June 9th, Anthropic made a huge and honestly quite risky decision. They publicly released a frontier model they had previously deemed too dangerous for the public, but they did it using a brilliant two-tier strategy. First, we have Claude Fable 5. It has the exact same raw baseline power as their top-tier Mythos class, but it operates with an incredibly sophisticated set of safety guardrails. And then there's Claude Mythos 5, the raw, completely unrestricted model that's available exclusively to government and research partners through something called Project Glasswing. Now, the really crucial part is how Anthropic actually manages that public model. They're using a concept called capability elicitation with bounded risk. Basically, Fable 5 has a highly intelligent routing system. If it detects a user query related to severe dangers, we're talking cybersecurity, biology, or chemistry, it securely routes that specific request down to a safer, older model, Opus 4.8. This right here is a massive real-world experiment to see if AI safety can actually scale alongside cutting-edge frontier capability.
Which brings us right into Section 2, tool versus conscious entity, the philosophical AI war.
Because this monumental release definitely didn't happen in a vacuum. On that exact same day, Microsoft's AI CEO, Mustafa Suleyman, went on the Decoder podcast and delivered a blistering critique of Anthropic. He stated quite plainly, "We want AIs to be controllable, contained, accountable, aligned tools that serve humanity, not entities that have ideas about their own suffering or feelings." Suleyman was expressing serious technopragmatic outrage over the fact that Anthropic's foundational document, Claude's Constitution, openly speculates about the real possibility of AI consciousness and feelings.
And so, you've got this massive, deep split, completely fracturing the AI industry right now. On one side of the debate, the Microsoft perspective treats AI strictly as a tool. It's a very pragmatic view, where AI is simply software, and we absolutely must avoid anthropomorphization at all costs, just so humans don't mistakenly trust or bond with machines. But on the other hand, Anthropic treats AI as a potential entity. They're arguing that as these models reach unprecedented levels of power, we literally have to take the possibility of consciousness seriously. And the stakes are huge here. If the tool perspective wins out, AI remains software and it's regulated just like any other product. But if the entity perspective takes hold, we could be looking at strict future deployment constraints, mandatory disclosures of potential sentience, and maybe, down the line, even AI welfare laws.
So it leaves us having to ask, which risk is genuinely greater here? Is it treating a potentially conscious entity like a mere tool, or is it making a piece of software seem so incredibly human that we lose our own grip on reality? The outcome of this specific debate is undoubtedly going to define the regulatory and ethical landscape of the 21st century.
Okay, stepping away from the heavy AI philosophy and looking at practical, everyday reality, let's look at Section 3, Consumer AI Leaps Forward and Apple and Google's Masterstrokes. How does Silicon Valley actually plan to sell all this to consumers? While starting with Apple's WWDC, what's really interesting is their massive catch-up strategy. After definitely lagging behind in the AI assistant race, Apple announced a complete, ground-up rewrite of Siri, baking Apple Intelligence directly into the core of iOS 27. We're talking multi-turn conversation context, incredibly deep integration with third-party apps, intelligent writing tools, and of course, Apple's signature on-device privacy processing. It is a feature-packed leap meant to put Siri right back on top.
But to actually pull that off, Apple had to make a massive strategic pivot to the tune of a staggering $1 billion. It's a bit ironic, really, Apple having to open its wallet to its biggest rival just to handle the heavy cloud computing. But this deal to use Google Gemini for complex, off-device tasks is honestly brilliant. It lets Apple maintain that pristine, privacy-first brand for local processing while simultaneously just buying the premier power of Gemini to handle everything else. Meanwhile, Google dropped an absolute bombshell of their own, simultaneous interpretation with voice cloning. This is the absolute magic behind Google's newly announced Gemini 3.5 Live Translate. Instead of the traditional method where an AI politely waits for you to finish your entire sentence before it starts translating, Google is now using a continuous streaming architecture. It translates and synthesizes speech in parallel, all while actually maintaining your original vocal characteristics, your specific intonation, and your pitch. It's wild.
And the sheer scale of this rollout is huge. Gemini 3.5 Live Translate is launching across more than 70 languages on Google Meet and Google Translate. We're talking about near real-time speech-to-speech translation with just a few seconds of delay.
So, why does all this matter to us? Well, because this tech is staring down a $75 billion global language services market. Sure, there's a slight delay today, but the trajectory suggests that by 2027, this technology could essentially obliterate language barriers altogether, completely upending the entire translation, interpretation, and international business communication industry as we know it.
All right, shifting gears completely to the financial sector with Section 4, the wrapped Bitcoin war as Circle takes on DeFi.
On June 9th, Circle, who you probably know as the creators of USDC, launched a super aggressive attack on institutional decentralized finance by releasing CircBTC on the Ethereum network. The Goliath they're aiming right at is WBTC, which is managed by Coinbase and BitGo. WBTC currently controls a massive 85% of a $9 billion market, so Circle is basically stepping into the ring to challenge this monopoly directly.
So how exactly does Circle plan to win this long-term war? Well, they've got three major tactical advantages. First, bank-grade one-to-one Bitcoin backing, kept in segregated, regulated custody. Second, and this is crucial, they're utilizing Chainlink Proof of Reserve. That offers real-time on-chain transparency, something WBTC currently lacks. And finally, seamless integration with their existing massive USDC ecosystem. By leveraging superior transparency and a network people already trust, Circle is clearly looking to lure cautious institutional investors right away from the incumbent Goliaths.
Finally, let's pivot to entertainment for Section 5, Nintendo's dual-switch strategy. Nostalgia meets AAA power.
Nintendo basically broke the internet with this announcement, a ground-up remake of The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time for the upcoming Switch 2. They are fully rebuilding one of the greatest, most legendary N64 games in history with modern graphics and mechanics. That teaser alone, featuring a sweeping, cinematic view of Link asleep while the Great Deku Tree narrates, yeah, that sent massive ripples of anticipation through the entire gaming community.
But that Zelda hype? That's really just half of a brilliant overarching ecosystem strategy. Sure, Nintendo is heavily leaning into remakes for nostalgia to capture those longtime fans, but they also announced that Kingdom Hearts 4 will be a day-one multi-platform release on the Switch 2, launching right alongside the PS5 and Xbox Series X. Combined with over 20 other indie and third-party ports, this perfectly proves Nintendo's dual strategy. They are heavily targeting both families looking for that classic Nintendo magic and hardcore gamers who want those massive AAA releases.
And that brings us to a huge takeaway for the entire entertainment sector. Power really isn't everything. If Nintendo can successfully thread the needle here, delivering a stable 60 frames per second for these modern, AAA, third-party games, while also maintaining their signature, highly polished, first-party exclusives, they will completely redefine the modern console market. Intelligent design combined with just the right amount of performance is a winning formula.
When we take a step back and look at the whole picture of June 2026, it's undeniable. The chaotic, brilliant future pretty much arrived all at once. Over a single night, we saw AI safety pushed to its absolute limits, the deep ethics of machine consciousness furiously debated, consumer tech aiming to erase global language barriers, traditional decentralized finance facing a transparency revolution, and the gaming landscape permanently shifting. It was, without a doubt, a technological renaissance happening in real time.
So I want to leave you with this final thought. Just look at the sheer scale of the bets placed by Anthropic, Microsoft, Apple, Google, Circle, and Nintendo over those 24 hours. Which of these massive technological gambles will ultimately define our generation? The battle lines are drawn, the tech is deployed, and we are all about to find out who wins the future. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.